Imagine receiving a letter from a killer who not only admits to murder, but dares the police to catch him. A man who terrorized Northern California, left cryptic ciphers behind, and vanished without a trace. More than 50 years later, his identity remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in criminal history. Stay with us until the end, because we'll uncover the chilling timeline, the hidden clues, and the unanswered questions that still haunt investigators today. If you enjoy true crime mysteries, make sure to subscribe and join us as we begin the hunt for the Zodiac Killer. In the late 1960s, Northern California was a place filled with hope and change. Families enjoyed peaceful weekends, young couples escaped to quiet scenic roads, and cities buzzed with new ideas and opportunity. But beneath this calm surface, a terrifying mystery was about to unfold, one that would leave an entire nation living in fear and create one of the greatest unsolved criminal cases in American history. No one knew his name. No one knew where he lived. Yet somewhere among millions of ordinary people, a killer was patiently waiting. He blended into everyday life, leaving no obvious clues behind. Before long, his crimes would shock California, confuse investigators, and earn him a name that would become infamous around the world, the Zodiac Killer. On the evening of December 20, 1968, two teenagers, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, set out for what should have been an ordinary date. They drove to a quiet lover's lane near Vallejo, California, expecting nothing more than a peaceful evening together. They had no idea they were being watched by someone with deadly intentions. As darkness settled over the lonely road, another vehicle quietly approached. Moments later, gunfire shattered the silence. When police arrived, they discovered a horrifying scene. David Faraday had been killed, and Betty Lou Jensen lay nearby after desperately trying to escape. The mysterious killer had vanished into the night without leaving behind his identity. News of the double murder spread quickly throughout the community. Residents struggled to understand how such a brutal crime could happen in a place known for its quiet neighborhoods. Detectives searched tirelessly for evidence, but every promising lead seemed to disappear. What no one realized was that this tragedy was only the beginning. After the murders, investigators searched the area for hours, hoping to find a witness, a weapon, or even a single clue that could identify the gunman. Roadblocks were set up, nearby residents were questioned, and evidence was carefully collected. But despite their efforts, the killer had disappeared without a trace, leaving detectives with more questions than answers. As Christmas passed and the new year began, the investigation slowly lost momentum. Weeks turned into months with no arrests and no credible suspects. Many believed the murderer had either fled California or would never kill again. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the nightmare had ended. But they were tragically mistaken. On the night of July 4, 1969, another young couple, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mago, parked at a quiet location known as Blue Rock Springs Park near Vallejo. Like countless couples before them, they expected nothing more than a peaceful evening. They had no idea the same mysterious killer was about to return. A car slowly pulled into the parking area before driving away without warning. Minutes later, it returned. This time, the driver stepped out carrying a flashlight and a handgun. Within seconds, gunshots echoed through the darkness. The attack was swift, terrifying, and left investigators convinced they were hunting the same ruthless murderer. Although Darlene Ferrin lost her life, Michael Mago survived the attack despite suffering serious injuries. From his hospital bed, he gave investigators one of their first descriptions of the mysterious gunman. It wasn't enough to identify the killer, but it confirmed one chilling truth: the murderer was still out there, and he could strike again at any moment. Less than an hour after the attack at Blue Rock Springs, the Vallejo Police Department received a chilling phone call. Speaking calmly, the unknown caller claimed responsibility for the shooting. Before hanging up, he also confessed to the unsolved murders of two teenagers the previous December. For investigators, it was the first undeniable link between the two horrifying crimes. Detectives carefully compared witness statements, ballistic evidence, and the timing of both attacks. Piece by piece, a disturbing pattern emerged. The same weapon, the same type of victims, and the same calculated approach pointed toward one terrifying conclusion. California was no longer dealing with isolated murders, it was facing a serial killer. Then, on August 1, 1969, 3 newspapers received nearly identical handwritten letters. The anonymous writer claimed responsibility for both attacks and included a coded message unlike anything investigators had ever seen. He demanded that the cipher be printed on the front pages, or he threatened to continue killing. The strange symbols puzzled everyone. Experts, detectives, and amateur code breakers stared at the cryptic message for days without success. Every symbol seemed to hide a secret, and every failed attempt only increased public fascination. The killer had transformed the investigation into a deadly game of riddles. Just days later, an ordinary school teacher and his wife believed they had cracked the code. As investigators confirmed the solution, they were stunned by what they read. The message revealed the killer's disturbing thoughts, but, to everyone's disappointment, it did not reveal his identity. Instead, it deepened the mystery surrounding the man who called himself the Zodiac. In another chilling letter, the mysterious writer introduced himself with a name that would soon become legendary. He ended his message with a strange crosshair symbol and signed it simply, Zodiac. From that moment on, newspapers across America referred to the unknown murderer as the Zodiac Killer, a name that would haunt the nation for decades. As newspapers published the Zodiac's letters, fear spread across Northern California. Parents warned their children to come home before dark. Young couples avoided secluded roads, and communities that once felt safe were now filled with anxiety. The killer had achieved something beyond murder. He had made an entire region afraid. Police departments across Northern California worked together, sharing evidence, fingerprints, witness descriptions, and every possible lead. Hundreds of officers were assigned to the investigation, but each promising clue seemed to disappear into another dead end. It was as if the Zodiac had planned every move long before striking. On September 27, 1969, the peaceful shores of Lake Berryessa were crowded with visitors enjoying the warm afternoon. Among them were two college students, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, relaxing beside the lake. It seemed like a perfect day, until a mysterious figure slowly emerged from behind the trees. The man approached wearing an eerie black executioner's-style hood with clip-on sunglasses and a white crosshair symbol displayed prominently on his chest. Speaking in a calm voice, he claimed he only wanted money and a car. But within moments, the couple realized they were facing the same ruthless killer who had already spread terror across California. The hooded stranger ordered Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard to lie face down on the ground. He calmly tied their hands with pre-cut lengths of plastic clothesline, speaking so quietly that, for a brief moment, they hoped he might simply leave. But that hope quickly vanished as the true horror of the encounter became clear. After carrying out the attack, the mysterious man walked away with remarkable composure. Instead of fleeing in panic, he disappeared into the surrounding woods as though everything had gone exactly as planned. His calm behavior convinced investigators they were dealing with someone who had carefully prepared every detail. Before leaving the area, the killer approached Brian Hartnell's parked Volkswagen Carmen Ghia. Using a black marker, he wrote the dates of his previous attacks on the driver's door and added the date of the current crime beneath them. It was a chilling signature, one that linked all three attacks beyond any doubt. Brian Hartnell survived and later gave investigators an incredibly detailed account of the attack. He described the hood, the strange crosshair symbol, the killer's calm voice, and his deliberate movements. His testimony became one of the most valuable pieces of evidence in the entire Zodiac investigation. The attack at Lake Berryessa changed everything. Detectives now had a surviving witness, a unique costume description, and a handwritten message left at the scene. Yet despite the growing mountain of evidence, the Zodiac Killer remained just out of reach. Unknown to investigators, his most brazen crime was still only weeks away. On the evening of October 11, 1969, San Francisco was alive with activity. Restaurants were crowded, neon signs lit the streets, and taxis carried passengers across the city. Among the many cab drivers working that night was Paul Stine, unaware that one ordinary fare would place him at the center of one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. Shortly before 10 p.m., an unidentified man entered Paul Stine's taxi and calmly gave him a destination. Nothing about the passenger seemed unusual. He spoke quietly, dressed neatly, and blended into the evening crowd. As the cab drove through San Francisco's streets, neither man could have imagined how the ride would end. The taxi stopped in the quiet Presidio Heights neighborhood. Moments later, the peaceful silence was broken. The passenger attacked Paul Stine before stepping out of the cab. Instead of fleeing immediately, He remained at the scene for several moments, behaving with a calmness that would later astonish investigators. From the window of a nearby home, several young witnesses noticed the suspicious activity and immediately contacted police. They carefully observed the man before he calmly walked away from the taxi. Their description would become one of the most important eyewitness accounts in the entire Zodiac investigation. Police dispatch quickly broadcast a description of the suspect. But a tragic communication error identified him as a black male instead of a white male. Officers searching nearby unknowingly passed a man matching the Zodiac's actual appearance. By the time the mistake was corrected, the killer had vanished once again into the darkness. Another envelope arrived at the offices of the San Francisco Chronicle. Inside was a handwritten letter from the Zodiac. To prove he was the killer, he included a small piece of Paul Stein's bloodstained shirt. It was chilling confirmation that the author of the letters and the murderer were one and the same. The Zodiac didn't just claim responsibility. He mocked the police for failing to capture him. He described how officers had come within moments of finding him after the San Francisco murder, suggesting he had watched the investigation unfold with confidence. His words frustrated detectives and terrified the public even more. Every new letter ended the same way, with the mysterious crosshair symbol that had become the Zodiac's signature. It appeared on envelopes, ciphers, and handwritten notes, becoming one of the most recognizable symbols in criminal history. Yet despite its fame, it offered no clue to the identity of the man behind it. As weeks passed, fear settled over San Francisco and the surrounding communities. Evening routines changed. Taxi drivers became more cautious. Couples avoided isolated areas, and many residents looked over their shoulders whenever they walked alone after dark. The Zodiac had turned uncertainty into a powerful weapon. Investigators worked around the clock, chasing thousands of tips from across the country. Handwriting experts compared letters, fingerprint specialists analyzed evidence, and witnesses were interviewed repeatedly. Despite the enormous effort, every promising suspect was eventually eliminated or could not be linked to the crimes. Once again, the investigation reached a dead end. The Zodiac seemed to enjoy more than committing crimes, he enjoyed controlling the investigation. Every new letter forced detectives to drop what they were doing and examine another possible clue. The killer wasn't just hiding from police. He was challenging them, turning every message into a psychological game that kept the entire nation watching. As months passed, investigators received thousands of tips from ordinary citizens. Some callers claimed to know the killer personally, while others believed they had seen him in public. Detectives followed every credible lead, but each investigation ended the same way, with more questions than answers and the Zodiac still free. Experts carefully studied every Zodiac letter, searching for hidden meanings, repeated phrases, and clues buried within the handwriting. They compared each envelope, stamp, and signature, hoping to uncover a mistake that would reveal the killer's identity. But the Zodiac remained frustratingly careful, leaving investigators with little they could prove. The Zodiac case quickly became national news. Newspapers printed updates almost daily, television broadcasts discussed every new development, and millions of Americans followed the mystery with growing fascination. Each headline raised the same haunting question: who was the man hiding behind the name Zodiac? Then, almost as mysteriously as the killings had begun, the confirmed attacks came to an end. The letters became less frequent, and the Zodiac seemed to fade into the shadows. But investigators refused to close the case. They knew that somewhere, perhaps living an ordinary life, the man they had searched for was still out there. As the 1970s unfolded, the Zodiac investigation entered what detectives call a cold case. The crime scenes had been thoroughly examined, witnesses had been interviewed, and countless hours had been spent chasing leads. Yet despite years of relentless work, the killer's true identity remained hidden, leaving investigators with one of the most frustrating cases in American history. Over the years, new generations of detectives inherited the Zodiac case. Each believed that fresh eyes and modern investigative techniques might uncover the clue everyone else had missed. They carefully reviewed thousands of reports, witness statements, and pieces of evidence, hoping to finally solve the mystery that had haunted California for decades. Throughout the investigation, police examined numerous suspects. Some seemed to match witness descriptions, while others appeared connected through circumstantial evidence. But every promising lead eventually ran into the same problem. There was never enough reliable evidence to prove beyond doubt that any one suspect was the Zodiac Killer. As forensic science improved, investigators revisited old evidence with new technology. DNA analysis, fingerprint comparisons, and advanced digital imaging offered hope that the mystery might finally be solved. Yet even with these powerful tools, the available evidence remained incomplete, and the Zodiac's identity continued to elude investigators. Today, more than half a century later, the Zodiac Killer case remains officially unsolved. It continues to inspire documentaries, books, podcasts, and endless debate among investigators and true crime enthusiasts. Despite decades of searching, one haunting question remains unanswered: who was 000? The Zodiac Killer, and how did he disappear without a trace? The Zodiac Killer's crimes changed the way America viewed serial investigations. Police departments began improving communication between jurisdictions, forensic methods continued to evolve, and investigators learned valuable lessons from the case. Even today, the Zodiac investigation is studied by detectives as one of history's most complex and challenging criminal mysteries. Every few years, a new theory captures public attention. Some believe the Zodiac's identity has already been discovered, while others argue the truth may never be known. Investigators continue to examine evidence whenever new technology becomes available, hoping that one overlooked clue could finally reveal the man behind the infamous letters. Unlike many famous criminal cases, the Zodiac investigation has no confirmed ending. There was no arrest, no confession accepted by the courts, and no final verdict. That uncertainty has kept the mystery alive for generations, encouraging countless people to search for answers that have remained hidden for more than 50 years. Was the Zodiac an ordinary man hiding in plain sight? Did he stop on his own, or was he prevented from committing more crimes? These questions continue to divide investigators and historians alike. Until definitive evidence emerges, the identity of the Zodiac Killer remains one of the greatest unanswered questions in criminal history. More than half a century has passed, yet the Zodiac Killer continues to challenge investigators, historians, and true crime enthusiasts around the world. Perhaps one day, new evidence will finally reveal the truth. Until then, the case remains an enduring mystery. What do you think happened? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more true crime mysteries.